So let me ask if anybody would like to volunteer to read Job chapter 19.
Yeah, I can.
Thanks, Don. What translation are you going to use?
The NIT from the Reformation Study Bible.
Okay.
Then Job replied, "How long will you torment me and crush me with words? 10 times now you have reproached me. Shamelessly you attack me. If it is true that I have gone astray, my error remains my condition alone. If indeed you would exalt yourselves above me and use my humiliation against me, then I know that God has wronged me and drawn his net around me." Little sarcasm there.
Just a little.
Though I cry, I've been wronged. Oh, though I cry, I've been wronged. I get no response. Though I call for help, there is no justice. He has blocked my way so that I cannot pass. He has shrouded my paths in darkness. He has stripped me of my honor and removed the crown from my head. He tears me down on every side till I am gone. He uproots my hope like a tree. His anger burns against me. He counts me among his enemies. His troops advance in force. They build a siege ramp against me and encamp around my tent. He has alienated my brothers from me. My acquaintances are completely estranged from me. My kinsmen have gone away. My friends have forgotten me. My guests and my maidservants count me as stranger. They look upon me as an alien. I summon my servant, but he does not answer, though I beg him with my own mouth. My breath is offensive to my wife. I am loathsome to my own brothers. Even the little boys scorn me. When I appear, they ridicule me. All my intimate friends detest me, and those I love have turned against me. I am nothing but skin and bones. I have escaped with only the skin of my teeth. Have pity on me, my friends. Have pity, for the hand of God has struck me. Why do you pursue me as God does? Will you never get enough of my flesh? Oh, that my words were recorded, that they were written on a scroll, that they were inscribed with an iron tool on lead, or engraved in rock forever. I know that my Redeemer lives, and that in the end he will stand upon the earth. And after my skin has been destroyed, yet in my flesh I will see God. I myself will see him with my own eyes, I and not another. How my heart yearns within me. If you say, how will we hound? If you say, how will we, how we will hound him, since the root of the trouble lies in him, you should fear the sword yourselves, for wrath will bring punishment by the sword, and then you will know that there is a judgment,
Hmm.
or there is judgment, more than one.
Thank you, Don. I was noticing there's some very minor updates in the NIV text since the version you're reading. Just a couple of things that they weren't, I don't think, significant, but interesting how,
This is 1984, I think.
yeah, yeah. So, like in verse
Yeah,
13,
International Bible Society.
yeah, verse 13, and two places where Like yours says, he has alienated my brothers from me, or something like that. But it says brothers.
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly.
And then later on in the text, it says brothers again. Both times it's family in the newer version. And then
Mhm.
end of verse 20, I have escaped only by the skin of my teeth. That's the newer version. But I think yours was, I have escaped only with, right? Only with the skin of my teeth or something. Verse 20.
Yeah, I escaped with only the skin of my teeth.
Yeah.
And
This
that's
one
not
is
much skin, is it?
only by the
Hey,
skin of my teeth. Yeah, that's not a lot of skin.
Yeah.
So, so apparently they just, keep working on it, and they don't have to do it completely new. They don't have to change the name or anything. They just update the language a little bit. It's not a completely new thing. Um, anyway,
good.
so I think
They're not
everybody,
rewriting the Bible.
not rewriting it, thankfully. I think everybody remembers what we've been talking about in Job 19 and what's been going on. And we almost at the end here, the first part basically consisted of Job's charge that it is God who has done this to him. And then he listed several ways of looking at what God has done, or he expressed several ways of what God has done to him. And we talked through those, and I tried to point out to the best of my knowledge and ability that how they were pointing or foreshadowing Jesus and his redemptive work. And now we get to verse 23, and this is going to foreshadow Jesus in another way. It's going to be Job's description of Jesus, not Job's experience foreshadowing Jesus, but his description of the coming Redeemer. And so this is more directly easy for people to see that we're talking about Jesus and his redemptive work. And in fact, it's, I think, so easy that I found this really interesting. In verse 25, the really famous verse, right? I know that my Redeemer lives.
Hmm.
In the
Mhm.
ESV, and you can tell me if your translation also does this, but in the ESV, the word Redeemer is capitalized.
Yes.
And is that the same everywhere? Is the NIV, Don, capitalized for you? 1984?
Yes. Yes.
Right. Okay. Because in the more
For
recent NIV, it's got lowercase. It's not it's not given as a title or a name of a specific person. It's just a lowercase Redeemer.
Hmm.
So
mm,
and Catherine, I heard you also say that so that's the New American Standard has Redeemer capitalized, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Shirley, what about the King James, verse 25?
No, it
Yeah.
doesn't.
Okay. And then Gary, you have the Holman.
Yes, it's
And
capitalized.
it's capitalized there. So I find that to be
and then
really,
I got a footnote for
yeah.
that.
Yeah, go ahead.
I got a footnote for Redeemer that says, or Defender, which of course is a small d.
Hmm. Yeah. So the translators recognize that this is so clearly Christological, right? That many of them capitalize the word Redeemer here. And
Hmm.
that it's because, there is no uppercase or lowercase designation in the original text. So, um, so anyway, that is interesting to compare translations on that and note that. So in verse 23, Job says in the ESV, "Oh, that my words were written. Oh, that they were inscribed in a book. Oh, that with an iron pen and lead they were engraved in the rock forever," which is almost the same as the NIV, right? NIV, "Oh, that my words were recorded, that they were written on a scroll, that they were inscribed with an iron tool on lead or engraved in rock forever." The idea is permanence, right? That Job's words would be permanently recorded and indestructible. Uh, like God's words, they last forever. And what do you think he's talking about? What are
Like
the
the Ten
words?
Commandments.
Yeah, like the Ten Commandments, but what do you think the words that Job wants recorded? What is he I don't believe he's saying he wants this entire dialogue recorded forever, although he does get that. So his words are recorded forever, which is kind of neat.
Mhm.
Um, but isn't he well, I'll let you guys give me your thoughts on what does he mean?
I mean, I get the impression that he's talking about his basic claim that he's righteous and um, God is not punishing him for any bad that he's done, and that he's walked with the Lord. He's 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 lived. He's done his duty as an obedient servant of the Lord, and that what he's experiencing is not due to anything that he's done wrong.
Right. I think that's well
I wonder,
summarized. Yeah.
is uh, overall in Job, his acquaintances uh, say to him that his affliction is due to his sins against God, his disobedience. And would it be accurate to say that Job's response to that is that I don't think that that's true. On the other hand, I'm not sure why I'm being afflicted.
Yeah, I think that's fair. That's a good summary, I think. Um, Job would say not only, I mean, he would say, I don't think that's true in a very strong, forceful, right, unflinching way. He wouldn't say, well, it could be right, but I don't think it is. That wouldn't be his stance. His
Hmm.
stance would be most definitely that is incorrect. That kind of thing. But yeah, he does express uh, most of the book is about him handling the confusion of that's brought upon him, the cognitive dissonance that results from having a good relationship with God and yet being punished like a wicked sinner, or being having an experience like the punishment of a wicked sinner, uh, and that creates this tension, right, in his thinking.
Mm.
And so he knows in his heart, in his soul, he has a good relationship with God, and that God is not doing this to him as has been expressed as punishment, right? God's not punishing him for something he did, that he is actually already one of God's people. He has already been redeemed. His sins have been forgiven. Uh, when he is offering sacrifices at the beginning of the book, it isn't for salvation, but for continual righteousness before the Lord. So it can be seen as an act of sanctification more than a salvation thing. He's already been redeemed. And so he is saying, I'm one of God's people. And he's contrasting when he says he wants his words to last forever. Basically, it's a way of saying that in the eternal court, when this is finally decided, whose words are going to stand? Is it going to be the words of my friends who say, as you summarized, Don, who say, you're a sinner and God is punishing you for your sin? Or is it going to be my words, which is, I'm redeemed. I'm a redeemed sinner, and God is not punishing me for my sins. Uh, so he wants the verdict, right? He's talking about the verdict when he says, I want my words to be inscribed, written down. He's talking about which characterization of this case will be the one that finally gets the stamp of approval from God. Uh, so
He knows that he he doesn't have to understand why this is happening to him. What he knows is that he believes in God. He knows he's Redeemer lives, and that he wants his words to go down in history as being a believer, as being somebody who never gave up their faith, regardless of what's happening to him.
Yeah, absolutely.
Chuck,
Yeah, Catherine.
this is
Yeah,
something
so
that's really,
go ahead.
this is something I have been really concentrating on. You asked us what we thought it was when we read verses 23 and 24. And so we back up and we're trying to remember and think and so forth about all we've learned about this so far. For me, it's a remembering that he was pleading for a defender, for a vindicator, somebody, when it was really being laid on him hard by his friends. I think I recall him stating that at least 2 times.
Mm-hmm.
Looking for in court, a trial, something, a defender. So when you asked us that in verses 23 and 24, I thought, well, is he referring to previously or is he referring to verse 25? Because in verse 25, I know that my Redeemer lives, and at last he will take his stand on earth. Now, if I may, I will read very briefly this note I have about verse 25.
Mm-hmm.
It says that I know that my Redeemer lives are familiar words to the Christian because of their adaptation to Christ in several well-known hymns. However, the sense here is different from that which is usually understood when applied to Christ. The Christian idea of Redeemer is of one who is a deliverer from sin. The Hebrew word goel should more appropriately be translated vindicator, namely, one who delivers from affliction and wrong, which is not due to sin. That sounds like Job, doesn't it? Job, unable to convince his friends of his innocence, was leaving it in God's hands to prove to them that he was not guilty of the sin of which they accused him. This is the high point in Job's stated trust in God and dependence upon him. So I want your opinion about I think what he said in verses 23 and 24, he's referring to verse 25. That is why he's saying, oh, that my words would be written, because he's always cried for a defender or a vindicator. And then what is your opinion of what I just read as the note for verse 25? Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for sharing that.
You're welcome.
So to the first point, yes, he may be thinking ahead and saying, I want it written down that this is what I understand you to be saying about the relationship between 23, 24, and 25, is that perhaps what Job is doing is saying, I want it recorded that I've asked for a redeemer, a vindicator, a defender, and that I believe that I will receive one, something like that.
Yes.
And I think that that's possible, and it doesn't. I don't think it changes materially how you would interpret, anything else in the book, right?
Okay.
I'm not persuaded that that's what's going on. I still lean toward Job is saying the kind of the overall summary of the case type of thing. This is why, yeah, it's that kind of thing. Integrity is the issue.
Okay.
As for the definition or the alleged difference between the New Testament understanding or the Christian understanding of Redeemer and the Old Testament Hebrew understanding of the word here, which means something closer to vindicator. I think that is not as how do I say this? I don't want to say that it's wrong. I don't want to say that, but I do want to say that there's continuity between the word there, redeemer, is jail. It's, we're going to look at it in a few minutes in a little bit more detail, but it is a word that, applies to redeeming from debt, redeeming, Boaz is
Yeah.
a kinsman redeemer. We all know the story of Ruth. He redeems her. He's a
Mm-hmm.
jail. That's the same word that's being used here. Um,
Yeah.
and it is, I think actually the word jail is applied to redemption from sin when it is applied to God. But I actually had part of that in my outline, and I erased that paragraph about 20 minutes before we started the class because I thought it's not that useful right here. Um,
Okay.
so if anybody printed out this thing before I erased it, it's coming up in the outline. But uh, I think there's continuity. I guess I'll say it like this: that in the Old Testament, when we're talking about a human person being a redeemer, a human person being a redeemer, then that human person is redeeming people from debt or from slavery, which they have gotten themselves into because of debt, or it's a restoration of the hope of a family line, like Boaz with Ruth. So it's
Mm-hmm.
the restoration of something physical or potential that has been lost, and that you could not recover yourself. Somebody else must recover for you if it's to be recovered. And so God had arranged it then that there would be a kinsman redeemer or redeemer who was a kinsman of yours or even your master, uh, who could redeem you in certain
Mm-hmm.
circumstances. And,
Mm-hmm.
we'll look at a couple of more of the details about that. But that those things are all pictures, because there's a movement, right, in the Bible from physical persons, physical institutions, physical arrangements, uh, physical dispensations, and things like that, that they move from, say, the literal and physical to the spiritual. As God is teaching spiritual lessons through these physical things that He's showing, and so redeeming from material debt. I got myself into trouble. I owe people money, and now I have to hire myself out year by year until I pay off this debt, right? Being redeemed from my physical labor and my physical debt becomes a picture of being redeemed from any kind of debt, including spiritual, and in fact, most importantly, spiritual. And so while it might be accurate to say in the New Testament we tend to think more about spiritual redemption, and in the Old Testament the word seems to be applied more often to physical redemption. That would be a true statement. The fact of the matter is the physical redemption is a picture of the spiritual redemption. And so they're both talking about the same thing. So there's no disconnect between. So the Christian reads Job and they think redeemed from sin, redeemed from death, you know, and Job's actually going to use it like that, redeemed from death.
Mm-hmm.
But we think that because we're looking at it from the fulfillment end, looking back with new eyes, seeing it for taking the spiritual reality as the thing that it's pointing to, and we say, well, then that's what it's about. But in the Old Testament, they were also aware that these physical things were pictures of spiritual things. And so they would, that's why the word redeem or redeemer is used in the Old Testament, of both the redemption of property, or money, or people who were gotten themselves into, you know, it's not really slavery, but become servants of other people so that they could work their debt off. that word's applied to that, but it's also applied to redemption of sin, from sin.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
it's the same word, and there's nobody that goes, oh, it means two different things. They go, it's the restoration of what has been lost. It always means that. And the what has been lost is fill in the blank. And so the Redeemer redeems you from what has been lost. And then you go, well, what's been lost? Well, relationship with God through sin, or
Mm-hmm.
I lost prospects of a family because in Ruth's case, my husband died and now I'm outside the people of God and I've lost my, I could have had, families and had inheritance among the people of God, and I could have enjoyed fellowship among the people of God. And now that has all been lost. And so that gets restored by the kinsman redeemer. So anyway, very long answer. Um,
Thank you.
hopefully I even talked about the thing you asked about. So that would be an
You
extra
did.
bonus.
That's a bonus.
Extra bonus. All right. That's a good question though. So yeah.
Okay.
So in verse 24, as we saw, Job asked that his words were engraved in the rock forever. In the ESV, it's the rock forever. In the NIV, it's in rock. Uh, the NIV brings out more of the idea of permanence. The ESV is going for this kind of subtle, um, I think the ESV in using the rock is going for a reference to God because God is the rock, right? That's what he is called multiple times in the Old Testament. And uh, so I see another kind of a reference there too in the engraving in Isaiah 49:16. God says this, and of course this would be the second person of the Trinity saying this: Behold, I have engraved you on the palms of my hands. Your walls are continually before me. So this is he's talking about Jerusalem, and Jerusalem is I forget what figure of speech that would be, but Jerusalem stands for the people of God in this. So he's talking about Jerusalem, the city. I've engraved you, that is the name Jerusalem, on the palms of my hands, and your walls are continually before me. What it means here is that God is saying, I carry you. You're part of me. You're always with me. I'm always with you, and you're always on my uh, not just my hands, but on my heart and part of my plans. Because every time I raise my hand and swear to do something, there you are. You're the center of it. That kind of thing. Um, and that I think it's really hard to read those words in Isaiah 49:16 without thinking of the crucifixion, right? Am I the only one who thinks of the crucifixion when I read, I've engraved you on the palms of my hands?
Hmm.
So hopefully nobody's thinking,
Right.
why would you think of the crucifixion? So so I usually go like this. Oh, Isaiah 49. Oh, Psalm 22:16. Yeah, of course. Right? Psalm 22:16. Not the first part, which is dogs encompass me, a company of evildoers encircles me, but they have pierced my hands and my feet.
Yeah, I can see that.
Yeah. And so we read in the Isaiah passage, and it conjures up to us, which might not be the right word because that I think has association with magic, but it
Mhm.
it evokes the memory or the association of the crucifixion. And I think that
Mhm.
is planned by God, and that's legitimately planned, obviously, by God that we would do that. And so the thing is, Job, not only his words, but his name and his life are engraved in the palms of the rock, who is God.
Mhm.
And we know that
Yeah.
because his Redeemer died for him. And the piercing of his hands is linked thematically with this idea of your name is on my palms of my hands. So at least those are the associations that I think about when I read the text in Job. Um, so I want to ask if anybody has any thoughts about that, and also I'm especially interested if anybody has different associations that would be helpful. And everybody's silent.
Thinking.
Well,
With,
back to, oh, go
I
ahead.
was just going to ask for clarification on what associations with which passage?
Oh, verse 24 in Job 19, they
Okay.
engraved in the rock forever.
Engraved in the rock. Okay.
And so to Shirley.
Okay. On Job 19:24 too, but I think, and of course, the Bible doesn't say, so it's all a matter of our thoughts, all of our thoughts. But what I think the words he put in was what he said in verse 25, for I know my Redeemer liveth, and he shall stand at the latter days upon the earth. The only other thing he might add to that is, I shall see God, maybe, or something. And I think those are the words that were written as a testimony for others to see of him and his life. That's just my opinion.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. Yeah, so I see that I think that the way that you're looking at the passage is different than the way I looked at it. And it's not bad, it's good, it's helpful. Because I think what you're doing, Shirley, is you're linking it with the memorial stones in the Old Testament, where they go over the Jordan, they write down the words of the law on the rock, right? And they leave it there so that when people come by, they see it and they remember God's great work and they see the Ten Commandments and the testimony there. And so you're thinking about it in that type of context. And so what would Job write down for other people to see? And yeah, okay, I get that. That's a really
it's a way of keeping his legacy going. You know what I'm trying to say? It keeps his legacy going.
Yeah, and it's beneficial to others.
And the words engraved in rock forever say 10 commandments to me.
Yeah.
That that just evokes the scene with Charlton Heston receiving the stone tablets. And that's such a memorable scene. And well, I know that's Hollywood. It still evokes that memory of how miraculous that was to receive the engraved stones, and that God would replace them when human anger destroyed them. That God will continue to provide us with that sense that he is always there, regardless of what we do to destroy it, whether it's intentional or emotional or accidental, or whatever. He's never going to leave us without that. It's engraved in rock forever.
Yeah, I was thinking something along those lines as well as the engraved in rock. But a little, I guess the context I was thinking of it was in terms of the the tablets that Moses received being not just the law, but the record of the covenant between God and his people. And you see important things like that recorded in in stone. And so but I mean, usually a covenant like that is it's a pledge to do this going forward. So Job is like saying this is it's almost like an attestation that he has kept the covenant, so to speak, and he wants that attestation to be similarly written in stone, just like the covenant that he's being faithful to. Um, so yeah, I get it. I get the similar sense to Becky that it's like a recording of an official document or declaration. You think of like a royal decree would be recorded permanently. Um, so I think he's trying to evoke those same types of things. Like this is something that I want to say and I want to be recorded as for like officially on the record, so to speak.
Hmm. Yeah. Oh, thank you.
I think it's interesting that in verse 23, he says, "Oh, that my words were written, oh, that they were inscribed in a book." And then he wants, in verse 24, that with an iron stylus and lead, they were engraved in the rock forever. I mean, he wants it there in a book or in a rock. He wants it there. He just wants it. He wants it to be known
Yeah.
and to be saved.
Yeah. He wants wants a permanent record.
Mm-hmm.
And,
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
and so, I liken it, or I see it as a parallel with his integrity. He has
Mm-hmm.
said over and over again that this is
Mm-hmm.
about his integrity. He's not going to give up his integrity, and his integrity is, his trust in God, his hope, his
Mm-hmm.
understanding of his position before God, his understanding that he hasn't sinned, that God is good, God will bring justice, all of those things he's been maintaining, even though he's also been maintaining he doesn't really understand what's happening and the situation is confusing and painful. But
Mm-hmm.
still he's going to hold on to his hope in God. He's going to hold on to his insistence that he didn't bring this upon himself by sinning. He's, and also that his friends and their characterization of him is wrong. And he wants, so that's been, when he says his integrity, those have been the things he is thinking about. And when he says he wants his words inscribed in a book and engraved in the rock forever, he's
Mm-hmm.
expressed his integrity as being unchanging. He's not going to change. He said that several times. It's just, this is the way it is. This is the way I am, and I'm not going to give this up. And so his words now are being put in kind of to be engraved in a rock is to be, uh, to highlight the permanence and the unchangeableness or the unchanging nature of those words. And so that, anyway, that's why I liken it then to his basic case, or what I summarized a minute ago as what he means when he says his integrity. But I think ultimately, like I also said, it doesn't really affect overall your major interpretation of the book of Job if you uh, say, well, okay, Chuck, that sounds okay, but I think it's actually verses 25 and following that he's referring to. That's the primary. That's fine, and I don't think that changes an interpretation. Um, uh, but I just see the permanence thing as lining up with his declarations of his integrity.
I think what's interesting in my Bible is this punctuation that I've seen in verse 23 and 24. And you just used the word declaration, because in my Bible, it has 3 exclamation points. I mean, it is hard. He is speaking hard. And it's so seldom, as far as my study is concerned, it's very rare for me to see an exclamation point in Scripture. And there are 3 of them in verse 23 and 24. I mean, there's a strong emphasis there with that punctuation about that declaration that he's making. Now, maybe that's just totally insignificant. I don't know what to call it, but it's something that I see. It's there, and it tells me he's declaring it. He's strong. He's stating it. What do you think? Oh,
Yeah, so that you're talking about in the New American Standard, the exclamation point
yeah,
after
yeah,
there are three sentences, and there's an exclamation point, exclamation
right.
point at the end of each one of them. Right. Oh, that my
Yeah.
words were written, exclamation point. Oh, that they were inscribed in a book, exclamation point.
Mhm.
That with an iron
Mm-hmm.
stylus and lead, they were engraved in the rock forever. So I think that the exclamation points show strong, like you pointed out, strong emotion, strong commitment to this. The oh that my words were written, you're going to have a little bit later in the passage. He's going to say at the end of verse 27, my heart faints within me, another exclamation point. It's that type of a expression. He's saying when he says, "Oh, that my words are written," he's saying, "I have this foundational, very deep hope, desire, that this would expectation, not expectation, I guess hope and desire. Oh, that my words would be written." And then when he thinks about his Redeemer and how glorious that is, my heart faints within me. This is so great, you know. So I think that the
Mm-hmm.
exclamation points are just kind of highlighting um, the fervency of his emotion as he
Mm-hmm.
says these words. Yeah.
Yeah, it caught my attention. I just
Yeah.
wanted to share that. I mean, it's very tiny. It's probably most people won't notice that, but I'm just sharing that to tell you that when you say to us that he's making a declaration that this is important for him, there it is. I think, didn't you learn didn't any of us learn when we were being taught English classes from when we were, remember all the punctuation lessons we received when we were young?
Yep.
And what they stood for and so forth and so on. So anyway, I'm going on and I don't need to. And thank you very much, Chuck.
You're welcome. Just as a additional note on that, the NIV, at least the one on Bible Gateway, has verses 23 and 24 all as one sentence. It does have an exclamation point at the end, but it has all as one sentences,
Okay.
which I I kind of think that a good translation approach in the book of Job, especially for Job himself when Job is speaking, is that the sentences should be short. He's tired, he's beaten down. He, he's
Oh,
he's not
easy.
talking in long sentences.
No.
Well, I
Okay.
see it's 7:57. We didn't even get to the exciting part about the Redeemer. Um, oh boy. So I'll just read those verses and then we'll end for tonight. So verse 25, for I know that my Redeemer lives, and at the last he will stand upon the earth. And after my skin has been thus destroyed, yet in my flesh I shall see God, whom I shall see for myself, and my eyes shall behold, and not another. My heart faints within me. If you say, how we will pursue him, and the root of the matter is found in him, be afraid of the sword, for wrath brings the punishment of the sword, that you may know that there is a judgment. So Job gets the highlight of his thinking. And a lot of people, I think Dawn earlier had read, or maybe it was Catherine, either Dawn or Catherine read a note that said, this, my Redeemer lives, verses 25, 26, 27, that those are kind of the pinnacle of Job's thinking, certainly in this chapter. And a lot of people argue for the whole book that this is the high point of his thinking about the Redeemer. And then after he's said his part about the Redeemer, and that's overjoyed him, overwhelmed him, which is my heart faints within me, end of verse 27. And then he returns to his friends, just as he started the chapter, telling them, you're not counseling me very well. You should just be quiet. That would be the best thing you could do. He here basically warns them. And I think he's speaking to them with some compassion, not with the self-righteousness of I'm better than you and you better watch out what you're doing. I think he's saying, you guys, you're gonna get yourself into trouble. And so, which would be the appropriate thought about, to have after thinking about God's going to redeem me. God's going to send someone for me. My Redeemer lives, and he's gonna make things right. Because if you are, if that's really true, then you should have compassion on people who need a Redeemer, right? Because so a lot of people, when they read Job, they think at this point, things like this, that he's being accusatory and stuff like that, and even commentators will say that, and I don't buy it. Job's presented himself in humility the whole book, and so I think when he gets to these points, there's a couple of places in the speeches where he talks to his friends and tells them, "You're treading on dangerous ground here. Be careful what you say." And I think he's doing that again. So next week we'll talk about, Lord willing, verses 25, 26, 27 about the Redeemer and Job's proclamation about him. And at the last, he'll stand upon the earth. I guess the only thought that I want to leave you with about that Redeemer is that when Job says in verse 25, I know that my Redeemer lives, he isn't saying, I know that in the future, I will have somebody who will be my Redeemer.
No.
He is saying, I have a Redeemer.
Right.
And he lives, and I'm going to see him one day.
Mm-hmm.
And so Job is presenting himself there and thinking of himself as a redeemed person already, because he has a Redeemer. He doesn't have a potential Redeemer. He's got an actual Redeemer. So, yeah. And yeah, so much to say here. Resurrection, bodily resurrection, all that in here too. So, thank you for all your comments tonight. I am happy that we spent the time we did talking about the things that we talked about. I think it was important, good stuff. And we will continue with the rest of this chapter next week. Let me turn off the recording.